Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today's Tuesday, June 15th. The time is 5:10. I will start with Mrs. Sneed, if you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States. Thank you. We'll have a roll call starting from my far right.
Denny Brown.
Bonnie Sneed.
Pam Kirby.
Eric Meyer.
Jennifer Peterson. Okay, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, that passes 5-0. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I do have a couple of things before the public comments that just to recognize some of the great things that are happening in our school district. We have two Saguaro High School students, Lexi Lewis, who's a junior, and Henry Jetson Burke, who's a senior, and they were the two choir students that were chosen from Scottsdale School District at the November 6th Arizona Music Educator Association All-State Festival performance that was held at McClintock High School. There was approximately 60 students across the state that were chosen out of about 900 students that were able to participate, and we want to congratulate them for their efforts in the all-state festival that they were able to do. Also, November 9th at Tonalea Elementary School, the PTA hosted a cyberbullying and internet event for parents and community members. Detective Tanya Corder of the Scottsdale Police Department spoke to 35 parents about ways to keep children safer while using technology. Overall, our sports teams are doing an incredible job. At Arcadia, our girls swim and dive team won state championship, and the boys were second. In swimming, Carly Stevens was the girls 500 freestyle champion. Nathan Anderson was the boys 100 butterfly champion. Hayden Sells was the boys diving champion. And then Emily Harrison, Seidel Harrison, Laura Gonzalez, and Carly Stevens were the girls medley relay champions from Arcadia. At Desert Mountain High School, we had Brandon Hughes tied for first in the 200-yard individual medley. And at Saguaro, Jack Wynn was a cross-country state winner. At Chaparral, Megan Cox, as a senior, was first place in the 200 individual medley. She also won that event last year, so she's repeated 2 years in a row. And Lexi Atchison was a freshman who's got first place in the 500 freestyle. And then at girls golf from Chaparral, Jackie Lamar was the first place individual for state in golf. Her score was 75, which is usually what I get on the first 9 holes, so she did great. This weekend, we're proud to say that we have 3 teams still competing in the high school football playoffs. Chaparral High School will play Perry, and Saguaro will play Queen Creek. Or that was last week. That was last week. Yeah, Chaparral is moving forward this week, and they're playing Centennial over in Peoria. And then we have Saguaro is playing and Arcadia is both playing. And if both of the Saguaro and Arcadia win, they will be seeing each other in the state championships up in Flagstaff. So they'll be having to travel to Flagstaff to play the state championships. But I think they'll be happy to make that trip. Our middle schools, this past weekend, we had the Middle School Athletic Festival for our middle schools. And it was an incredible opportunity for our students to go out. We had an incredible turnout. Students from ANLC, Cocopah, Cheyenne, Copper Ridge, Desert Canyon, Ingleside, Mojave, Mountainside, and Supai all participated, and it was a great event, and we had a lot of parents that were very appreciative that their students were able to participate. And then finally, coming up on November 18th, 5 to 7 in the evening, we have Making College Happen, the Road to Financial Preparedness. That will be at Supai Middle School, and we're really focusing on our middle schools being able to understand that now's the time to start thinking about college and being college ready. And so we're proud to be able to have that. That event will happen several more times throughout the next several months, but the kickoff will be at Supai on the 18th.
Okay, wow, sounds great. Okay, public comments. Is there something else? Okay, public comments. We have Gwen Parker and Kim Hartman. Hi. Yes, come on up to the mic. Just so you know, you have 3 minutes, and the board cannot address anything that's not on tonight's agenda. And our vice president, if you're going over your minutes, he'll tell you when you're getting close. Wait, go into the mic a little bit.
Cherokee. I say this so that you know we've been longtime supporters of Scottsdale School District, and we know how important great public schools are to our community. So having said that, Kim and I got together after back to school night, and we were stunned at how many kids are in our kids' classrooms. We've watched that number increase over the past couple of years, and we just thought enough is enough. We need to try to do something about that. Because one thing that we do know for sure is that we have some of the very best teachers in town, but the large classroom size is affecting their way of teaching our children. So we decided to have some meetings and some conversations, and through those we have come to the conclusion that the quickest way to get money into your hands so that you can hire more great teachers, thus reduce classroom size, is through state tax credit contributions. Our goal is to increase those contributions, and while we realize that can provide many great programs for our school, our main focus is to reduce classroom size.
As Gwen mentioned, right now our goal is to increase school tax credits by double, so $2.2 million to $4.4 million. Our intent is twofold. One, to continue the great extracurricular programs that the school tax credit currently supports, and then secondly, as Gwen mentioned, to actually use the M&O dollars that are currently spent on extracurricular activities and increase the school tax credit to replace those dollars. Okay, so therefore being able to use those dollars to hire more teachers. We believe that our understanding is currently there's $1.7 million currently in the M&O budget that's spent on extracurricular, and we think that's a conservative number. How we plan to go about this is a couple of things. We've begun to mobilize our little initiative, if you will, and we've done a couple of things. First, we've reached out to Dr. Peterson and some of the SUSD school staff to get their support and make sure that we're in alignment and consistent with our communication. Secondly, we've reached out to various principals as well as teachers to ensure that our goals are in alignment with what their goals are. Next, we've met with and presented at the Scottsdale Parent Council and have secured their support. We're identifying a tax ambassador at each of the 30 SUSD schools. As of now, we have 22. We should have the remaining few by the end of the week. We've set up a Gmail account that you're all available to participate in, and we're going to use that to cascade the message. So our tax ambassador will be kind of our single point of contact, which will cascade the messages out to the respective learning communities as to what our purpose is, why we think this is important, and how to make those school tax credit contributions. So just to conclude, we just want to solicit your support, and to the extent you have any questions, comments, feedback, concerns, please share that with Gwen and myself, as we'd like to make this a really successful effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you give us the Gmail address, by the way?
I'll confirm it, but I think it's school.
You can email it to us.
I'll get it to you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Okay. Any other public comments? All right. Dr. Peterson.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Again, I would just like to thank Mrs. Parker and Mrs. Hartman for their efforts. They have been true champions for tax credit. They came in with an idea. They've taken the idea and they've run with it. They've helped develop some marketing for us, and they are really doing a champion effort. And so I just would, again, it's really nice to know we have great community support, and that they really want to make sure that the kids are doing the best and the dollars go to the classroom. So thank you both for your efforts. You guys are doing a great job, so thank you. Finally, this week is American Education Week, and I'd like to just read a proclamation regarding American Education Week. It says, whereas our mission of delivering a world-class education, promoting the highest level of academic achievement, creativity, and personal growth to inspire greatness in today's students and tomorrow's leaders correlates with this year's theme of American Education Week, which is great public schools, a basic right and our responsibility. And whereas today's students will be the leaders of tomorrow, by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, public schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas public schools provide young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality, it's the responsibility of our public schools to prepare students to successfully meet emerging challenges and opportunities. And whereas Scottsdale Unified School District employees, whether community specialists or teachers, nutritional service workers or librarians, nurses or principals, counselors, bus drivers, and all other district employees work tirelessly to serve and motivate our children. The success of public schools is reflected in the support given them by the community, and the purpose of American Education Week is to focus attention on the important role education plays in our country and its future. Now therefore, on behalf of Scottsdale Unified School District, we do hereby proclaim the week of November 13th to the 19th, 2011 as American Education Week in Scottsdale Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Could I pull one item, please?
Sure. Yes, you can. Just so we know, just for future, because I know we did this last time too. Usually when we're approving the agenda, and I guess should have said something when it happened the last meeting, that's when we usually pull the item to discuss. But yes, we can pull it to discuss it now. That's fine. Which item do you want to pull?
The adjacent waste change order for A&LC.
What's the number for that? K. Okay. Why don't we go ahead and go to K?
My question is simply, it says in the background that SRP and City of Phoenix are requesting the changes, and it results in a change order in the amount of $177,000. My question is, if SRP and City of Phoenix is requesting the change, why is SUSD picking up the tab?
Madam President, members of the board, I will have Rick Freeman give you a little bit of background on that.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Sandra. The situation that we have at ANLC is based on our environment, or based on the neighborhood, first on the City of Phoenix. The only way that they have to do improvements in some of the areas is when there's projects that take place in those community areas. So as we're rebuilding ANLC, there's road work that needs to take place that the City of Phoenix came back to us and said, we have to get this road corrected. We have to take care of these situations on this roadway. And it falls back into the school district because we are the property owner. They come back to us because we own that property to the middle of the street, or that's part of the easement and so forth. They turn back around and say, we'll issue your permit on this project, but you're going to be responsible for the upgrades to the street. The same thing on our utility. For Salt River Project, there's an easement that goes along the back side of the property, and to make the changes and the corrections to get power into the school, those adjacent waste things to pull that to our property, they come back to us, and we have to fund that if we want the power to our facility.
And the problem is we don't know these going into it. The city comes after that final permit issue, and actually the City of Phoenix wanted us to go and tear up Camelback Road also, and we argued strenuously against that, and they finally relented and said we didn't have to do that. But they were going to make us tear down that whole north wall and redo Camelback Road, and we said that's ridiculous, it's impossible. And so we were able to get that taken care of. But they come in and they say, to get the permit, you have to do these upgrades.
So this says that okay, SRP, I get that, and we'll set that aside. But with respect to the City of Phoenix, it says that the roadway improvements is in the city right-of-way and should be funded with adjacent ways dollars. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, the right-of-way, the city has a roadway that's put through that property. We are the connecting property to that, but that's the way the city gets their work done in all cases, is they charge that to the property owner that's adjacent to that piece of property. So if we were building a school on a piece of property somewhere, we would, as the school district, have to do those road improvements. We're rebuilding that school. We're responsible for those road improvements, but through the adjacent ways monies, that's how that will be funded.
Dr. Peterson, is that unique to City of Phoenix, or does City of Scottsdale have a similar policy?
Madam President, Board Member Kirby, that's pretty much any city in the municipality of the Phoenix area does that same operating area, where they say, you want the project done, you have to do these upgrades to meet these codes. And we just don't, we're kind of held hostage.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good question. Okay, do you want to make a motion then to approve item K? Or I guess we could approve the whole
Yeah, the whole
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
Wait, do I have to do K separately? That's what I thought, okay. Yes, K is separate.
okay, so I move to approve item K on the consent agenda, adjacent waste change order for ANLC.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then I need a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda minus item K.
So moved.
Second.
Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that all passes 5-0. Okay, update on Superintendent's Blue Ribbon Advisory Council.
Madam President, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Steve Caprobri. Steve's been working with our Blue Ribbon Advisory Council for since its beginning, its inception, and he's doing a great job. He's going to be here this evening giving you an update of where we are to date this year, because we're in a transition period, as you'll hear, and then where we are going through the rest of the year on what we're doing. So, Steve?
Thank you. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Sandra, it's good to see you, be with you tonight. Yeah, as Dr. Peterson said, I'm here to give you just a brief update on what's happening with the Blue Ribbon Advisory Council. Most of you are aware of the purpose of the council, but in case you forgot, I have a slide up on the screen. The purpose really, again, we created this 7 years ago, was to have a place where we could have all the stakeholders come together, be around the table, and talk about issues relevant to the district. So we're all hearing and talking the same thing. And so we also thought that this would be a great opportunity for this group to be a sounding board for the superintendent, for the governing board as well. And when I met with the initial council, when we formed the group, being the type A personalities that they were, they said, well, let's just not sit around and talk, give us some work to do. And so every year, the superintendent has charged the group with various issues to debate and discuss. And so on this timeline, you can see the various issues that we have tackled over the last 6 years. Things ranging from how to help garner support for teachers, to looking at the budget, to helping look at the central office operations. And then last year, we weighed in on the new strategic plan and all of the information related to that. This year, before I go there, here are the members, by the way, of the Blue Ribbon Advisory Council this year. You can note there by asterisk who some of the new members we recruited to participate with this year. Every year we do try to rotate some new folks in, but as you can see, we try to mix it up with some of the key stakeholder groups within the district, some of the parents, some of the community members and industry folks that we really want to have at the table talking with us about these issues. The work plan that was challenged to us by the superintendent this year was to really help debate two items. The first item was the technology plan, which we decided to really delve into during the next board meeting, so we haven't touched it much yet. The second issue that we really have spent the first 2 meetings on is helping the district sort through what to do about advertising, especially now with the opportunity created by the legislature. Bus advertising is just that first step, but what more can the district do with advertising? So the first meeting, we threw that issue out there, and we talked about if the district were to really create an aggressive advertising program, what are some of the key issues that the district should be sensitive to? And so these were some of the items that came forth. The top 2, really, we decided were the 2 main issues that needed to be debated in more detail, and so we decided to spend our second meeting really looking at firmly establishing what is the district's intention with advertising, and then where should the advertising revenue go. At our second meeting, here's some of the conversation that happened. With related to the district's intention, the advisory council really advised the district to be careful to balance the audience, who the beneficiaries of the advertising will be. Obviously the district, but be sensitive to making sure that the value statement we put out there is going to be attractive enough to the advertiser for them to want to pay to work with the district. It was recommended that the efforts be incremental and small steps to make sure we're sensitive to who the audience is. Is the audience the broader community, or is it going to be the students within the schools? That's a whole different conversation. Need to distinguish between what's been happening with advertising and community sponsorships, and be sensitive to how this may compete with the city and their advertising efforts, as well as other districts. We have on the Blue Ribbon Advisory Council a member from the city manager's office, Brent Stockwell, and they recently, the city went through a pretty extensive strategic planning process on how the city will be doing advertising. And so they shared with us quite a bit of information on what they came up with and what they learned, and they held stakeholder groups. And so I think that information can be gleaned and really used for our purposes, and so we intend to do that. And then the second main issue that we debated is, where should the money go? What should be the priorities? And so our group debated, well, it should be maybe a menu of options to go out to the community and say, here's some of the things that we're thinking of. Principally strategic programs that need supplemental funding, or don't forget too that maybe we could use this to seed some innovative ideas that may be coming down the line. We also had some folks who are sensitive to the fact that we should not forget also about sports and fine arts that tend to get cut as well. We had also a conversation around, don't just focus so much on programs, think about the end game here, especially since the district just went through this new strategic plan, new strategic goals. Let's talk more in terms of strategic activities that we're trying to accomplish. For example, like anti-bullying, so money can go towards helping to further that cause. And then we had suggestions about other partner programs that are facing cuts that really provide a valuable service to the schools, like the Scottsdale Prevention Institute. Maybe that's a way that we can help them do some critical activities as well. So that was the extent of the conversation. And then we spent some time as well helping to decide, with that information, how should we then approach the community and hold some community input meetings. And we have recommended that those meetings be held in two phases. The first phase is really sort of the homework stage, going to every school, meeting with the booster clubs, taking inventory of what's going on now, what's working and what's not working, and what should be the line between school-based advertising and district-wide advertising. So initially go out, test it, do the homework. Then we'll be ready to go hold a more community-wide meeting, and we're recommending one in each of the 5 communities. And this is the agenda, essentially, that we've recommended is, first of all, tell folks what initiated this, why you're doing it, that this change in statute, I think most people don't realize that is a new opportunity now. And really be clear on the intentions, that this is really to help supplement and expand key strategic activities of the district, but also listen to the community, because there's probably some hot buttons out there, and making sure that we're sensitive to what those hot buttons are. Communicate the types of advertising that is being considered, the look and appeal, maybe even bring some examples. I think most of us live in Scottsdale, so people are sensitive to graffiti and marketing that's not attractive. So what is it going to look like? Is it going to be appealing? The placement, where should ads be placed? Where are some things that should be off limits? And then again, what should be the relationship between what schools can do and what the district is planning to do? So that was the recommendation on what we think the key items are that should be discussed at those community input meetings. And then moving forward, we want to spend some time on the technology plan. And this really came up, a key issue in the strategic planning process, is that the district needs to do a new technology plan, but not just do the typical sort of 3-year plan, but try to think more in longer terms. What is happening with trends in technology? What is happening now with students and social media and everyone having a smartphone and their own personal computer, how can we capitalize on that and really create more of that personalized learning? And so we're going to be spending time in our next 4 meetings focused on the technology plan and really helping Tom Clark and his staff lay the foundation of how to then approach that moving forward. Reviewing the present situation and what has the history been, what are future trends, what are the desires of the clients, the customers, and the stakeholders, and then what is the recommended approach on how to really develop that new plan, that new initiative. Tom might even have us participate in some community input sessions as well. But I think that our group is really very much interested in technology, and I think are going to have some great ideas for all of you on this moving forward. So with that, I'll entertain any questions.
That was excellent, Steve. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? Dr. Meyer.
I don't have questions, but thanks for all the hard work, and we'll be looking forward to hearing your answers.
Okay.
Because you posed a whole bunch of questions. And when you go back, I mean, many of us have served on committees like this, and it's a lot of work and a big commitment, and I know the members of the committee, some of them have been serving for a while, and it's great to get the community input and participation, so thanks.
And it's also thankless, so thank you. I mean, really, excellent work. These are big topics you're tackling, so good luck.
Sure, thank you.
Mrs. Sneed.
Thank you so much, Steve. I actually missed the BRAC meetings. It was always a rich discussion. One of the things that, this is just a suggestion from one board member, but with the new legislation that's come out, I think one of the approaches that we need to make sure that we do is not set other groups up versus the district, but recognize that some of the advertising is on public property, and therefore the taxpayers actually should get the most benefit from the revenue, rather than, and I know this will be a big discussion, but I just don't want to pit like it's the district coming down on everybody, that it's more about the use of public facilities maybe.
Okay.
Can be included in this discussion. Thank you.
Well, and in the
Thanks
same
for
way,
your-
not pitting one booster against another,
Oh, right.
band against basketball or whatever, yes.
Right, but I think frequently when things like this happen, it's like all of a sudden it's the district, and I'd like to, keep that in perspective.
Okay.
Thank you.
Back. Okay. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
everything.
I don't know how to do this, so.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of best advertising rates and specifications.
Yes, Madam President, we have Ms. Carla Partridge that's going to come up and give an update as to where we are with our vehicle advertising, and as we move forward in the vehicle arena, and then we'll be taking on that discussion regarding our facilities and our advertising and revenues in the facilities in the future.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, David and Sandra. Just wanted to bring back to you some information tonight. We've already passed the policy, but we thought we would inform you on our intentions going forward and a little review of where we've been. So, can we do our... Yeah. We wanted you to know a little bit about the marketing plan for the vehicle advertising. First, we wanted to share with you our core message is going to be to accelerate your business with vehicle advertising opportunities. That's what we want to get out there. Our target audiences will be external, as you can see, our community and business partners, and we have listed several of those examples. Internally, we're going to be working with our own district departments who will be advertising on our buses, like our e-learning, community schools, nutritional services, so forth. How we're going to do this, our solicitation strategies will be, we will have a web page with all the information, with the flyers and our costs and our specs. We will be placing also our ads on our own buses, advertised with us, and also putting our brand on our buses and our district programs, sharing some information. We'll have promotional vehicle ads for district and all, for our district website and all our schools' websites. If somebody goes to our website, it'll say consider advertising the Scottsdale Unified School District on our buses. And we'll be doing saturated mailings of informational flyers so that people have opportunities. Here's the places that we would market the vehicle advertising opportunities and the several different places that we currently are advertising, starting with, as you can see, newspaper, radio, magazines, theaters, more additional places as well. As we go along, we'll probably determine that we have lots of places where we can share that information. Our media relations will be doing media releases, TV and radio contact, send everything out to our TV and radio contact list. We'll send media releases to our parent council and all of our parent groups. Word of mouth, that's a big one. So we'll make sure that we're getting the word out and spreading that. And we're going to develop a script for our athletic events. Also, we're going to blast email messages to our realtors and business partners and follow up with phone calls. And then, of course, social media, which is, we find very important that you bring the information to people. You don't want them to always have to come and fetch it. That is really effective. Some of our partnership opportunities are listed here. And some of our solicitation strategies are listed on how we will connect with them and how we will be constantly sending out the message. Our communications outreach will consist of a cold call script, meetings with our potential clients, and providing updates to our stakeholders on the successes of our campaigns. Our past bus revenue, advertising revenue is, as you can see, $207,264.13 from 2004 until this year. So we wanted you to kind of see where we were, the kind of revenue that has been coming in. And then I'm going to let Mark speak a little bit about our possible advertising revenue going forward.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. The slide presented in front of you is just a perfect case scenario of all the buses, depending on size, on what is the potential revenue that we can make if they were filled. If you take that top line, for example, out of the 112 total 84 passenger buses that we have, this example, the 118 by 38 inch side, if both sides were present on the bus each month for every single bus that we had 84 passenger wise would be 85,120, and then so on and so forth from there depending on size. So just to give you an idea of potentially if we were to fill every single ad space that we had available, this is what we could potentially generate.
And then on the next slide, we see this is the two most popular sizes that have been sold, advertising that have been sold. So you could just see this is it's kind of the same thing, but those are the most popular signs that have been sold in the past. Where will the revenue go? Revenue will go into an existing vehicle advertising account that may be used to supplement programs such as tutoring, middle school athletic programs, and more, and to support character programs such as Unitown, Minitown, character counts, and also to continue to promote and advertise our own district programs. If people are looking for the information, they can find it on our web landing page. And then as we send out packets to potential advertisers, there'll be the policy, the guidelines, terms and conditions, and a contract included in that which you've received. And here they will be getting the initial page with the advertising rates, the package deals that we'll be offering, some of the graphic submissions so they understand what it is that we require to get a clear sign, how to upload, and questions.
Thank you. That was well done. Mrs. Kirby?
Thanks, Carla, for the presentation. Back on the slide of where will the revenue go, are we handcuffed at all by state law on where the revenue can go within our district?
Actually, Sherry Slya would like to answer that.
It's flexible.
Okay. We'll have our financial Director answer that question. Just a moment, please.
Madam President, members of the governing board, I believe that that fund is fairly flexible. And
Okay.
so we could use it for operations or capital items.
Okay, so my question is, while these supplemental programs and character programs that you've identified are important, there's also some burning platforms that were actually addressed during public comment, such as class sizes. So could class sizes be addressed with the revenue from this bus advertising?
Go ahead, you can start.
I believe they could be. Just a caution, we'd want to, before we started adding teachers, you'd want to make sure that your revenue source is
Stable.
stable.
Okay,
And it
thank
needs to
you.
be sustainable as well, so.
Yes.
Mrs. Sneed.
Thanks, Carla. I was really impressed at how all the bases seem to be covered in your
Thank you.
presentation, and I kind of appreciate that we backed off a little bit until so much information was gathered. It's very well thought out.
Thank you.
Again, kind of along the lines of Mrs. Kirby's question, these character programs, Unitown, Minitown, character counts, can all be covered with tax credit donations.
Yes, but
I'm going to call that as well. Because specifically they're allowed. I mean, I know the character counts is considered one of those things that they can be used for. So I'm just wondering why we might choose to, use a revenue stream. Why it wouldn't just go to M&O, I guess, is what I want to.
Madam President, board member Sneed, yes, we have thought about that, but a lot of the schools that have these programs don't get a lot of tax credit revenue. So
Okay.
this would help to supplement that.
I
And
see.
yes, of course, if we had enough revenue that was consistent, that we could offset classroom size, for instance,
Mhm.
then of course we would do that. But we need to get to a place where we know it's sustainable before we can
Okay.
actually put ourselves in that situation.
And so just to clarify, the schools that can already generate enough tax credit revenue to cover these programs are pretty much already set with that. But because tax credit money has to be donated to a specific school and not to the district, this gives us a revenue stream to offer it to some of the schools that don't have enough tax credit money. Am
Madam
I-
President, board members,
Am I
Sneed,
right?
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
But just to clarify, this, I mean, obviously, we're not locked into anything. We haven't spent the
Right.
money yet.
Right.
Let's get
That
the
is
money.
correct.
Let's see.
That's
right,
correct.
let's
These
see
are
what the
just
money
some
is.
examples. We thought we would provide you with some
Okay.
examples.
Right, but
They're just-
at the end of the
okay.
day, we still decide whatever it's going to go to.
And
Yes, ma'am.
part of our reasoning is that we're spending dollars right now on M&O dollars on tutoring and middle school athletics and things. Same with tax credit. If we can get these revenues to offset this, we can take that money then and put it into the M&O, because it is M&O dollars, to lower class sizes. So the idea is try to offset expenses that would be kind of natural with tax credit or these types of advertising revenues, and then take that money that we offset and push that back into the classroom.
Exactly
So
the
that's
same
kind of the idea to
principle that
do
was
it.
discussed in public
Yes,
comment.
and so we want to follow the same path as what we're recommending with tax credit.
Brown.
Hi. So, 112 buses, 224 sides. That's a lot of artwork. Do we have enough staff to facilitate the sale? When I was in advertising, it's one phone call, lots of rejection, and then all of a sudden it all comes at once, and you're running around like crazy and trying to get artwork approved. And I need you to hand deliver. No, I need you to email. Blah, 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 blah. Can we do all that?
Madam President, Board Member Brown, we hope that's the problem we have. However, at this time, we are prepared to get going. We have everything in place. So if we have an onslaught, we're ready to go.
Do we have a back plan in case we got given that all of our district is stretched so thin at this point in time, do we have a back plan if there was if it was an overwhelming success and we needed help?
No.
Madam President, Board Member Brown, well, just remember, just to keep in context, we are not providing the artwork. The artwork will be provided to us. So
No, but I know, but then we have to approve the artwork, and then we have to make yeah, this is great artwork, but you need to change this, so there's more conversation. And then they go back and they go, okay, but we made our changes, is this okay? Well, it's just a process.
I think that's a great point that
Yes.
Jenny makes, and I think
We-
we need to have it in our back pocket, gosh, in the event,
Yes.
what is the backup plan? I think that's a really good point.
And that's what we would do if in fact, Madam President, Board Member Brown, if in fact we were able to grow to that point, we then would look to see what additional staffing need we would need. We want to be cautious. We don't want to add anybody and then it doesn't come through. I'd much rather have the backlog and then be able to come to you and say, doggone it, we're doing such a good job that we need somebody to help keep this survivable and maintainable. So that would be our goal there. We do have some folks already that have submitted, and Carla has a stack of interest. So we're ready to hit the ground running. We've got some folks that are already lining up, wanting to participate with us.
Thank you again. Please keep us posted.
We certainly will.
This is
Thank you.
exciting. Okay, approval of, or the proposed 2012-2013 school year calendar as modified.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Andy Forlis is going to have a little bit of a presentation regarding our proposed calendar, and also I'd like to ask our SEA President, Ms. Ann Hansen, to be able to speak a little bit about where we are with the support on the calendar.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson and Sandra. We have shared with you a proposed calendar for the 2012-2013 school year. I'm going to share some of the highlights of that calendar so that you can start your discussion. The first day of school would begin on August 13th. September 26th would be a district recess. Fall break would occur the week of October 15th. Thanksgiving break would be observed on the 22nd and 23rd of November. We would have 2 full weeks for winter break. Spring break would be the week of March 25th, and the last day of school would be May 29th. What questions do you have?
So you are... And can you, and Ann Hansen, perhaps this would be a good time for you. Let's discuss why we're discussing this again since we just discussed this. What
we would never ever discuss.
Right, we've said that for 7 years.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Peterson, Scottsdale stakeholders, I have to share that when Denny was talking about what happens when you have more ads than people, it reminded me when I was a production manager for magazines, and my sales rep called me up and said I needed to go uptown to pick up an ad, and I said, what? He said, well, I can't do it. So sometimes it's all hands on deck. So I'm up here without any newspapers or papers or magazines or plans. But I can tell you one of the reasons that the executive board support what was put before you, it has to do with the importance of instructional time. And not being prepared up here, I can tell you from the exec board perspective, which I agree with, that we were looking at potentially the loss of 5 instructional days. And I would like to focus first on Yom Kippur. And I'm going to speak as a classroom teacher because when I was asked, I'm going to speak as an individual at this time because it's very real to me, and I understand what it means when you're talking about a Wednesday where you might be losing some instruction due to a holy day, because we do respect the religious observance of parents and their students. So as a language arts teacher who ran a readers workshop, typically it was 2 days of writing, 2 days of readers workshop, and then there was a blur, because there's always a blur between writing and reading. So let's suppose I had planned to use Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. What I would do for the Wednesday and Thursday, we would be doing the reading. We'd be delving into Bloom's taxonomy, pretty much the lower levels, knowledge, and moving up, maybe application, with the intent of getting them to the higher levels of analyzing the characters, the theme, etc. And then come Friday,
we would have that production of evaluation or synthesis. Either they would be writing about a character, evaluating them. Personally, the narrator in Tellhart had some character defects, to be sure, and so you would orchestrate the movement to that important day. Without being able to do that, and then let me just carry over to the Monday and Tuesday, because if they have been writing about a character, that would be their reading literature type of objective on Friday, then maybe on Monday and Tuesday that writing would either be let's write a letter to the character, let's write the police report from the perspective of one of the detectives, let's write about the floor planks or the heartbeat, so they would have that creative writing that would come into play. So it's all very smooth and seamless. I can tell you from firsthand experience what happens when you have that Wednesday religious observance where you have to make sure that you monitor and honor that my writer's workshop now becomes vocabulary workshop, and in fact, it's not new vocabulary, it's review of vocabulary, and so that needs to be sustained for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, because the day that students come back, technically, I suppose I could start a story, for example, I suppose I could, but it wouldn't be anything meaningful to that one particular day where you could actually have them maybe using those words in a paragraph and then writing them and extending them. So the problem is you're really always playing catch up, and certainly I can give examples, or I could not give examples for the math teacher who would have similar situations. I want to talk about the other reasons which I can support. Coming back a full week in the beginning of the year, the winter break, for example, coming back on a Monday versus Thursday and Friday. It's critically important for teachers, and the older your students, I would argue, the more important it becomes to have that solid week with them back. Hitting the ground running is what I call it, because they already know you, and you know them, and you also know the full calendar, the battery of tests, the assessments they need to take, your obligation to reporting them, your schedule in terms of final exams. If we come back on a Thursday and Friday, we know we will not have everybody there. Now, that's not the onus is on them, and I get that. I truly believe it's an important for us to raise the awareness of parents, getting them back. Whenever the first day of school is, we need to get them there. I get that. The reality is sometimes there's Leo, the late bloomer out there in terms of parents, and it's a slow message to get. But in terms of a full week instructional time, it is so invaluable, especially when accountability is increasing exponentially. It becomes critically important for us to value weeks of instruction, week-long amounts, and the more we have, the better it would be. That's it for now, but I will answer more questions if you have it.
Hang close, because we'll probably have questions. And thank you. I actually did put Ann exactly on the spot 1 minute before we started, so thank you. Dr. Meyer.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that if Carla gets a rush on advertisements, we can call Ann, since she has experience and can help us out. Well, the questions I have, I think, are just relate around the winter break issue and what happens. I mean, we don't have any data at this point on what happens to kids, and hopefully we can get some on, and I'm looking at my two calendars. You know, if we do the second option where we start later, we split off testing by 2 days and have kids come back for 2 days after a long weekend with Memorial Day included. Well, we come back, yeah, they come back, well, they come back for a day and a half, because the last day of school is just a half day. And I think some other points were brought up about ASU schedule and kids at the high school level, and whether, as apparently ASU starts on the 21st of May. So whether teachers and kids want to take classes at ASU, the sooner we can get them out, the more likely they'll be able to take those courses.
You are correct.
So we're, again, as a board, placed in a no-win situation on deciding on the calendar, basically, because we have to choose between potentially losing some instructional days at the end of, or at the beginning of winter break if kids don't come back, or at the end when kids may not come back after Memorial Day. I and maybe the rest of us would like to get a little more data on if we can look at districts that may have a shorter winter break like that, and if they have a attendance problem coming back early. I mean, a lot of parents have to be back on that, it looks like the third, or yeah, they'd be back on the 2nd potentially, or the 3rd. I don't know when they'd have to go back to work. But so, you know, it creates, again, a potential child care issue for certain parents as well. And I don't know what the right answer is, but if we could get a few more data points, you know, we have a year until, well, not quite that long, until winter break, but we have a little bit of time. So maybe we could wait and get that data and make a more informed decision.
So you're looking for data regarding teacher and student absences?
Correct.
Related to a shortened
shorter
winter break?
Winter break.
And what?
And then the absenteeism, really it's about kids. I don't know about it's so much teacher absences. Well,
okay.
But the absenteeism for after Memorial Day is what I heard.
Okay.
Obviously, high school, they have exams, so there hopefully are not absentees there.
If we can get the data on the shorter winter break, that would be good too. I mean, other districts may have a shorter winter break. I don't know if we've ever done that in this district. I don't recall. And the other issue was ASU and how many of our kids would potentially be enrolling in ASU. Because if they started a day late, or if they could work out an arrangement with their teacher so that they could take the testing earlier and start at ASU, rather than starting a week late, they wouldn't have that option given the calendar that runs all the way until the 29th, I believe. So those would be the data that I would like to receive, if possible.
Okay, I've made note of those.
Thank you. Can you scroll to September, October, November? Okay, so if you look at that, on September 26th, there's a district recess, and that's for Yom Kippur. Then going into October, we have the week of the 15th off for fall break. And then going into November, you have 1 day for Veterans Day, and then obviously Thanksgiving. Is there any way, and I know this is opening a can of worms, but is there any way to take the fall break off of October 15th and either make it the week of September 24th or combine it with Thanksgiving? Or alternatively, go to school on Veterans Day? And I guess that's a rhetorical question. I don't really expect you to answer it right now, but I would like to hear SEA's and administration's perspective on all of those options. And you don't have to do it right now. We can
Madam
do it
President,
next
just the one thing I would like to caution is Veterans Day is a federal holiday, so that one may not be as easy to do just because it is a federal holiday on Veterans Day. But we can look at some other options and see what could come up with.
Different for a private school. I know they don't necessarily take off, but public institutions do. Yes. Government facilities.
And we do have relatively fresh data from last year when we explored the option of the full week at Thanksgiving off versus fall break that we can share with the board as well.
And then possibly having fall break the week of September 24th, since the 26th is already a district recess.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hanson, did you want to say something?
Madam President, members of the board, I do have to say, for all teachers, members or not, I can tell you that fall break is critically important. I would argue that teachers, if they had to choose between Thanksgiving and the fall break, they would say you need to keep fall break. It truly, truly has to do with their emotional well-being, the stress level. When you come back from vacation to the school year, you truly have on your plate an incredible amount of accountability that has been increasing every year. So when you have that, you truly are looking for that, you look towards that break to regroup and to de-stress. And the stress levels this year, I've shared this with several individuals, has been so critical. This is the first year in my experience as an advocate for teachers that I have had more than a half a dozen. Actually, I had never had anybody the week before school ended. I had more than a half a dozen teachers, as they were speaking to me, start crying. And each and every one of them talked about their stress and that they didn't know if they could make it to the end of the week. And I really do, I get very emotional about it because I know that they are they're walking on a treadmill now. They're used to the accountability and the burden, but stress has a way of finding a way. And more teachers are on prescription meds. They let me know when their meds have been increased, their blood pressure is increased. And so I do have to say, when I look at the fall break, it truly is something that is, I would argue, urgently needed, not only by teachers. I think that the students feel it as well, the stress of coming back from vacation. So I would strongly
it's also
share
placed
that.
there strategically because it's the end of the first 9 weeks. So
Right.
it's a natural break for the quarters.
And it gives,
so
thank
that's
you,
one
it
of the
gives them
reasons
an
it's there.
opportunity to regroup and plan and get that that reprieve.
And Dr. Peterson, I saw that it's strategically placed for the fall break for the first quarter, but when you go look at the third quarter, spring break doesn't have that same strategy. So that's what led me to conclude that maybe we might have some flexibility.
You are correct, and we did that strategically on spring break to try to pick up a day due to district recess that we had that week.
Right, and I understand that, but I guess if the strategy is important for fall, why is it not so important for spring? To be at the end of the quarter.
You're correct.
Thank you.
Mrs. Sneed.
I appreciate all of the thought that has gone into this from all sides. And it just seems like this is one of those things that no matter how you walk out the door, you can't make everybody happy. One of the things, having sat on the calendar committee years ago, which I have to say was very well represented. We had equal numbers of elementary and high school, parents, teachers, classified staff, administration. It was very well thought out as far, and we met, I think, like 12 times. And we actually came to consensus on the template. One of the things that had come out of it was that we had, at the time, we had experienced 2 years of high school students who could not get into SEC for the summer classes because our classes ended too long. And so I was looking at this calendar that brings us back for 2 days after Memorial Day, and I thought, well, maybe 2 days they could make that difference up. And so I placed a call to SEC because ASU is restructuring their schedule anyway, so I'm not sure that it applies quite so much, but to SEC, so that our students, especially our high-achieving students, that might decide rather than pay $150 for an extra summer class, I might want to pay $250 and get my college credit, some of my college credits out of the way. And we do have a number of those, and I'm afraid that sometimes our policies have been focused quite a bit on the lower achieving students, and I would like to do whatever I can to help minimize the impact to our higher achieving students. And quite frankly, with the A through F policies that we're looking at, the grading system, and I know that it has quite a bit of weight on the lower 25 percentile, but we have to rethink. We have to take a student no matter where they are and move them forward. If a student is willing and wants to go to summer school and they want to pay for it, we benefit from that. We benefit from moving them forward, from helping them grow at no cost to us. But mostly, I just hate to see anything that takes away opportunities for our for our excelling students and the kids that are highly motivated to just learn. They might want to go explore something that they can't do in 6 credits that we give them here on campus. And the other thing with I know that the calendar, and I'm preaching, I'm sorry. The other thing the calendar committee did try to do was make sure that there were full weeks.
Right.
Part of me in the back of my mind is saying, but we have 7 weeks during the year where, as important as professional development is, we have 7 weeks where we totally accept not having 5 days of getting deeper and deeper into the subject and following the Bloom's taxonomy. So I think we can adjust during some times and not others, and I'm kind of having a little bit of a trouble with that. Personally, the whole reason I got on the calendar committee was because I saw the negative effect of high school kids that were denied opportunities when we weren't finished before the college summer session started. And in the call that I made to a department chair at SEC, their explanation was that when you take a summer course, it's been condensed into 5 weeks. Your classes are every day, not every other day, and they're much longer. So to miss 1 day at SEC is like missing a week normally. So to miss 2 automatically exceeds the number of allowable absences, and they won't get the safety instruction in the labs and in science and their whole. It's just as important for our students to have that first day of instruction if they choose to do it as it is for them to be there every day with us. So I'm done. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Mr. Brown.
Well, I was just curious. So going to your kids that want to go to summer school, is there any way that as a district we could say, you know, if you declare in January that you'll be attending or would like to attend summer school, which starts 2 days before we technically let you out, that we would adjust a testing schedule for that particular group so you would just test a little earlier and then disappear and go to college. Could we do something like that? I mean, thinking about how many kids this would affect, I don't know if there's enough to
I don't
justify.
know how many it would affect. The only worry I would have, I think, but personally, I'll let Andy respond. I think a lot has been talked about class size. Wow, what a nightmare to do an exam on one day, to do another exam the other day. You know what I mean? I think it's a noble idea. I like it philosophically, but I think practically, it makes my head hurt to think how a teacher would even accomplish it. You know what I mean? But I love the idea philosophically, though.
And Board Member Brown, my comment is similar, that we have to make sure that the testing security of our final exams, that we preserve the integrity of the assessments, and that we would then also, theoretically, we could get ourselves into trouble if we are providing final exams early for some kids, which would then disrupt instructional practices and review and the amount of time that they have to review for the final exam and so on. So I would just hate to create, it's a creative idea that could cause some inequities of opportunities for instruction.
Madam President, members of the board, I want to talk about the student that we're defining right now. They are typically very self-motivated, self-directed learners. And from experience, having had the pleasure of having some of those students, I think they always find a way to make things happen for themselves. Some of our brightest students are also athletes, and they're also the editor of a newspaper, and they're also the president of a club. So we're talking about the best and the brightest, and I do think that what we don't know right now is how many we're talking about. Because I know when I look at our mission statement to engage, educate, and empower every day, I really, as a teacher and as an SEA president, I look at the 180 days of the K-12 kids that we are obliged to service. And while I appreciate, I really do, our care about those self-motivated best and brightest, I just feel that when we look at a calendar to deliver to the community, I feel that the priority must be on the K-12 students that we service within that time. And I also believe passionately that those students who want that credit, Bonnie, that they will find a way. And I also think that our counselors and our administrators would find a way to make it work for them because of that passion that they might have. So,
I just want to jump in here quick. I just have to say one big thing, template. This was the beauty of the template and not messing with the template. The reason it was set in place, it just is what it is. And depending on where the Julianne calendar fell is when we got out of school, when all the breaks were. So that was kind of the nice thing about the template. Again, everything you just plugged in the dates. As far as the ASU issue and getting out after Memorial Day, I am interested in seeing the data. I'm curious. And depending on the data, I'm more curious, as we talked about earlier, what we're doing in our classrooms. Why are we collecting books a week early? Maybe we need to make sure everybody's engaged and involved until day 180. I hear you on the ASU thing. I will say I'd be surprised because so many kids, they're doing so many of their classes online. And I would agree, I think a lot of these kids, where there's a will, they really do find a way. But let's hear that data. I too, probably much like Dr. Hansen, I'm actually more concerned with the 180 days within our calendar. And I am worried about the instructional time, and actually with the professional development, I agree. I think maybe David and I had talked about this. If we count 7 professional days, basically lost instructional time, then if we have those 2 days in December, if a lot of kids don't come back, suddenly we're up to 9 lost days. I mean, it feels like we're just growing and growing and growing. So my worry about the December thing, I am concerned not a lot of families are going to come back. And in the same way after Memorial Day, I'm actually more worried it's going to be younger kids who can't afford to miss the instruction. So I'm not sure what the right answer is. I'm honestly leaning back to, gosh, let's go back to our template and stop touching it. But, you know, let's see what the information kind of comes back. Mrs. Snead, you had another follow-up remark.
Yes, thank you very much. Also, in the same line that we have students who really want to achieve, we also have teachers that are interested in lifelong learning. And so I remember back when this calendar committee was formed that this was, at the time, was important to them. And in fact, that's why it was mentioned in the template that it would allow teachers and students to begin first session summer college classes. And that was the consensus of the entire committee. So, and I know this is so hard because you have the 180 days, you have the holidays, and it makes it very, very difficult. But I think it's the students and the teachers.
Is ASU's date set in stone? Do we know?
Yes, they've both been ratified.
What's SEC's date?
The 28th. So
May
it would
28th.
involve, it would involve actually 2 days or 2 weeks of instruction
Honestly,
at SEC.
I made the flip comment earlier, but I actually am sincere about it. I completely support local control with every issue. Honestly, I think we would be better served going forward rather than to continue to have, every year this conversation.
Okay.
Really a statewide calendar. Because the reality is the universities aren't going to change because of us. And we're talking about days based on if or possibly, do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's just, it's hard. It's hard to adjust our whole calendar based on, gee, do we think, I'm not sure. Mrs. Kirby.
Well, and if I could go back, and one of the things that was really important at the time was teacher training and having the high quality teachers. And so I know that at the time that this was discussed, that was a hot button.
That was a big
Was
hot button,
giving teachers, especially, I remember hearing from teachers who have little ones that didn't want to go to night school, and the courses that they wanted, were available in the summer and not online. And they said, when I go home, I want to spend time with my children, and so I would rather do it during the summertime and get my professional development, get my master's, some of my master's classes and things like that. So I think it also helps with our high-quality teaching.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, one of the other things we could consider, because in fact, when these templates are set, we don't know what the universities are going to do or what the community colleges are going to do. And ASU is truly moving to some type of a quarter system and trying to get more of those classes in those intercession type areas. One of the things we could possibly look at, and again, I would recommend that we'll get the data, we'll bring it back to you for December, but one of the things to maybe think about between now and December is the possibility is that because we're looking to trying to pick up 2 days, is to maybe start on that Thursday, the 9th of August. By doing that, we have our teachers come back the day before. They could come back on Wednesday. Otherwise, teachers are coming back on Friday, and they're starting then on that Monday. So we could look at that as a possibility. That also allows our bus drivers to do training those first 3 days of the week before school starts on Thursday. They're running routes. So that could be a possibility to maintain where we are. We did start school this year on the 8th of August. I believe it was too early, but try to get 180 days and everything else in. We would be starting on the 9th of August this year, which would be a day later. So that could be a possibility as we move forward.
Hey, Mrs. Kirby? I'm sorry, she was...
Okay, so in the spirit of data requests, I asked for this in work study, but I want to ask for it on the record. Could we get attendance data? And the high schools are incented, so while I'm interested, I'm less interested in the attendance for high schools, but more interested in middle schools and elementary for the day and a half after Memorial Day.
Yes, I have that.
And then in the spirit of what are we doing the last 2 weeks of school, I would like to just add to our to-do list, could we review the movie policy for the school district on watching movies in the classroom, please? And then finally, if we're going to consider coming back August 9th and 10th, then I request to get the data on what the attendance is historically been for that time frame. Thanks.
Dr. Hanson, and then you can...
Madam President, members of the board, I just want to share, again, as a teacher, my last experience was at Sierra Vista, and I will tell you that one of the first things that Rhonda Rickard gave me was the movie policy form. And it's a district form that basically teachers fill out. They identify the movie they'll be showing, what performance objectives will be satisfied, how that's going to be satisfied, et cetera, et cetera. So I agree that the policy should be looked at, but from where I'm standing, I can assure you there is a policy, and it's a matter of promoting it, enforcing it, monitoring it, because I would argue that the last couple of days at school that there is a potential legitimate reason for showing a movie. Finding Nemo is the one that we typically use because there are a lot of characters in that. There's a lot of themes of love and loss and fear, etc. So when we're looking at filling out a movie policy, if a teacher truly wants to show that movie and a principal is monitoring that teacher, I would argue that we can make that work for everybody, and especially the kids who deserve to see Finding Nemo. Thank you.
Well, and I'm guessing your point was not so much about the movie, but more making sure all of our time is in valuable use, correct? Okay. Dr. Meyer.
Boy. I thought we had a template.
Right. To avoid
so
this,
this board meeting was looking good about an hour ago, and we were looking like we were going to get out of here. But the calendar has reared its ugly head. So I'm leery of, moving the start date, looking at getting rid of fall break, and doing that all before the next board meeting. We've had multiple calendar committees that have looked at these. The way this calendar fell is a challenge. I would personally like to just choose between two of the calendars. both of them starting on the 13th, not moving fall break, because, I mean, I've argued getting rid of fall break since I've been on the board. And we could start a week later, we could save the energy costs. I know it would be hard for the teachers, and 92% of our teachers, and this is why we kept fall break, you know, want fall break. But I'd hate to do that between now and the next board meeting. I mean, the choice is, do we end on the 29th or do we end on the 23rd, and do we shorten winter break? And that would be the only choice I would like to address and get a little more data. If we're going to do all these other things, we're going to get emails. The teachers are going to go crazy if we're talking about getting rid of fall break. I'd just like to do that and then look at the template for next year that we have in place, and hopefully it's a good one, and we don't have to make any changes, and then move on.
I would agree. Just look at those last 2 days of school, whether it's they stay there or they come off a winter break. Yes? And what data we have to support whichever way we go. Yes? Does that kind of sum it up? Mrs. Snead?
Yes, I just wondered if the board members are aware of how to get to the template?
Oh, you mean the original template? Yeah, maybe we could get that link.
The 10-year?
It was a 10-year template.
Yeah, it was a 10-year template.
I believe it's January 23rd, 2007, but I could be wrong.
Well, but the template is pretty...
We will send that to you.
Okay.
We will send you all the 10 years. It was a 10-year template.
Well, and the
Started in
template
2006.
was included within a whole presentation that was made to the board and at the time that it was accepted. So I think that might be valuable information for all of us.
I have all those agendas, and it is in the archives of the board meeting. So we will send it to you. Actually, hanging up on by my desk is the template through 2017.
Mrs. Kirby.
So
to make you feel good
when you say there's a template, there's actually a calendar like this
Yes.
that was created many years ago for
Right.
the upcoming school year. Yeah, that'd be great to have. Thank you.
And I just hate to open up all, because just from personal experience, if we start opening up all these things, we're going to be, our next board meeting, the room's going to be full. People are going to be here talking about how hot it is in July and August and June, and it just turns into a mess.
Right.
And you know, the reason why I think the template's important, as Bonnie's pointed out, is we can look at these two and see which one's closer to the template or not, and we can argue about that next time or discuss it. But I really think we don't want to get too far afield.
Well, I agree. I mean, and I think some tweaks, like moving spring break to Good Friday, yay, that worked out for this particular year we're discussing. But that might not happen again for 7 years. Mrs. Kirby? It's right, just hang on
and
for 12
I'm
months.
fine with setting aside moving Thanksgiving. I guess I feel a little boxed in that we need a district recess for Yom Kippur. Fall break has to be on the 15th. We have to have a partial week for Thanksgiving. We have to have a veterans holiday. And yet we have to have 7 half-days for professional days. And then within all that, we have to fit in 180 days. So I was looking for alternatives.
Just heard the mission statement for the calendar committee.
So
That's what
I
they
was
dealt
looking
with.
for some alternatives to try to accommodate some of the requests of having Yom Kippur off, of having Thanksgiving off, having a full week for fall
And
break.
I think your suggestions, they're great suggestions. Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Brown?
Is does the template include the logic and all that stuff? So
Happy to talk with you at length.
yeah, I'll bet.
It's
Oh,
not
thank
so
you.
much, I mean, we keep talking about the template like it's, you know, the Rosetta Stone that we have to go by it. The only thing about, we do have to take off Veterans Day. Thanksgiving, obviously, we take Thanksgiving in the day. I mean, there are just certain things that just are. No, October break is not an R. That is a concession we've made for the teachers, you know, for a lot of reasons. That was one thing that was very important, and we felt, fine, let's support that. Okay, so we're not voting on anything tonight. We are coming back in December. Well, I think we need to get it done, pull, you know.
Yeah, December, let's do it.
Okay. All right, nobody else? Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Sneed. I apologize. I didn't notice your light.
I just wanted to mention that in the template, at the year that this was done, SCC and ASU both started on June 7th. And so it says finish second semester before June 1st, but then in the bullet points it says allows teachers and students to begin first session summer college. So, you know, maybe we're talking second session now that there's 3 sessions at ASU.
Statewide calendar is all I have, too.
Is this then
Yes,
on the December 6th agenda as an action item again?
Dare we?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
we're going to give it a
You
shot.
can always postpone it again.
Yeah, you
but
can
that's-
always do that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And Ann Hanson, thank you very much. I know I put you on the spot, but I do appreciate it. Okay, we have approval. Hold on, I need to go. ASBA, yikes. Yes, revision and consideration of proposed Arizona School Boards Association bylaw changes, and yay, selection of delegate and alternate to delegate meeting on December 15th. Mrs. Sneed.
I'm already signed up to go from the 14th to the 16th, so if this board is so inclined, I would be happy to represent us.
Yes, I love it. Eric, did you want to be her alternate? Is
I
that what your
will be
lights on?
there actually speaking, so I will be the alternate. Wasn't that easy?
That was easy. And do you guys, Denny and Pam,
Do you guys, if you want it,
okay. Let me make sure I'm reading this correctly. We are directing our representatives on how we feel about the bylaw change, assuming we agree with it? Is that what I'm understanding? Okay. So, okay, Mrs. Sneed.
I just wanted to move that the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board consider the proposed Arizona School Board Association bylaw changes and support the bylaw changes at the December 15th delegate meeting, the Biltmore Conference Center in Phoenix.
To be represented by?
To be represented by Bonnie Sneed as the delegate and Dr. Eric Meyer as the alternate to the ASBA December 15th delegate meeting at 8 a.m.
Okay, anybody want to second it?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes 5-0. Okay, any future action? Mrs. Sneed.
I was just wondering if we might be able to, and I don't know what we have going on for the next couple of months, but if we could possibly set up a work study for the board to review and understand better some of our personnel policies for staff and personnel, expectations, and just specifically Section G that talks about that. Also, if we can have a follow-up about looking into being a little more aggressive at having our students take math in their senior year.
Anyone else? Okay, I actually have one. Yes and no agenda item. David, the big strategic plan meetings that we had, the big community meetings, where our engage, educate, et cetera, I've heard some outpouring, and I've talked to you about this, from community members, because one of the things we talked about at the time was, oh, we'll be getting the community together annually, biannually, something, to discuss this, and we've not done anything. So maybe an update on that, where we are, what's happening. Okay, Mrs. Kirby first.
Okay. If I could request a work study on the programmatic strategy by facility for the school district. So For example, where do we have self-contained gifted? Where does that flow into elementary to junior? That's just an example.
The FLY program could be
FLY
STEM.
could be, yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Dr. Meyer.
We're supposed to do an annual wellness plan update. And I don't know if that's on the schedule. It just would have to be brief, but I'd like to know how our committee's doing.
We've not done that this year.
Not to my knowledge. We haven't heard from you tonight.
Madam President, Member Meyer, our last coordinated school health update, which encompasses our wellness program, was done this past spring. And so we do it annually, but typically it's done in the spring, and that allows for the committee to have a full year to review existing programs and make continued recommendations. So be happy to come back in the spring when the committee has something to present and recommend.
Perfect, thank you.
Sandra, you have that on our list, okay. Anything else? Oh, governing board reports, Dr. Meyer's lights on.
Are we there?
No, we're not. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Okay. Well, Kim and Gwen left, but they've been doing an incredible job, and I think, and so has the district, because Shannon, in tax credits, identified about $1.7 million in things that we spend our M&O dollars on that could be covered by tax credit dollars, and if we could increase our tax credit revenues per site, it would be great. And you know, they're looking at partnerships with corporations, partnerships with churches or synagogues and neighborhoods, all kinds of stuff. So they're really doing a great job, and it was great they came so you know we all can help facilitate them. And that leads into Scottsdale Leadership, and Bonnie's event that she had at Coronado was great, and maybe you want to talk about what their plans are. But that was another good event at Coronado, and it ended up potentially helping tax credits collections for our district.
Mr. Brown. Oh.
I just wanted to acknowledge the efforts. We've been talking over the last few months about maybe getting some of our retired computers out into the hands of the public. And I just want to acknowledge the efforts of Tom Clark and his staff. I'd also like to talk about Mr. Biera, or acknowledge Mr. Biera's efforts. It'd be his students that would be helping facilitate the rehab of the computers, and Mr. Chad Cottle over at HoHoCom is going to help on the distribution and figuring out the program, along with our esteemed interim Superintendent David, who has kept things pushing uphill all the time. And I just want to thank you all for your efforts, because I today received the prototype of the computer that would potentially go out. So just thank you all.
I wanted to thank so much the district, several members in the district that supported, that went out to Scottsdale Leadership Education Day at Coronado, and thank Mr. Biera for kindly hosting that again. And also, Mr. Biera got 2 students in front of this group of potential leaders in our community, both business and probably political. And I think that they were probably, of the whole day, the thing that they enjoyed the most was the student input. And so I wanted to thank him for arranging that. And one of the things that they did, our day was squeezed a little bit, and they took 2 hours at the end of the day away from our agenda. So we weren't able to go on a tour, which would have been helpful. But the reason they did that was because they're doing a Pay It Forward project, and they're going to be developing 2 programs that they devote the rest of the year to organizing, that will be an ongoing program that will help, that they can leave to the community when they're done, when they graduate, or continue to be involved. Several of their programs have resulted in nonprofits springing up around the community. And after the presentation at Coronado, they chose the Coronado community to focus one of their Pay It Forward projects. So I think that was a very beneficial day, and we certainly appreciate their partnership. And I also was at Coronado for the Ford driving school thing, and I had to go to parent council, otherwise I would have tried to weasel my way into one of those Mustangs. Been able to try it myself. Maybe next year I can do that. So Coronado was chosen by the Ford driving school to give I believe it was a free presentation to all of the students, and then several of them got to participate in driving a course with special goggles on that distracted them, and I think it was a great learning opportunity. And I did get to go to the Desert Mountain Professional Development Day for bringing your own technology. And let's see, that was it. I just wanted to thank everybody for inviting me.
I just want to extend my compliments to Mrs. Sneed. She's very, very humble. But Scottsdale Leadership Day was your day. You hosted that entire day. You planned it, organized it, did everything, and it was amazing. And you were incredible, everything you did with that day, honestly. And then I also want to compliment Mr. John Biera, who was the big movie star of the day. We got lots of emails, lots of positive comments. Everybody seemed to love John Biera. So thank you, John, for representing us so well. You're a movie star? Okay, next meeting, Tuesday, December 6th, 3 p.m. We have an executive session about our interim superintendent's oral evaluation. Is that in December? Yes. Yes? Okay. All right. We also have a study session at 4, same day, regular governing board meeting at 5. Then we jump to January 10th, 2012. I know. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion and a Mrs. Sneed?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That passes 5-0. We are adjourned.